What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood, talking Mondays, January 8th. 6-game slate? I think that's right for this. Yeah, 6-game slate on this Monday afternoon, Monday night, college football national championship. And I think a fun night in the association as well. We got the usual Monday crew for you here. Mangone, AP, I'm Draft Sheet, of course. And we're going to break it all down, go game by game, all that good stuff. Before we get started, let's throw it over to you, AP. How you doing on this Monday afternoon?
Yeah, doing really well. It was a fun, final week 18. I mean, NFL went by so fast. The game last night was a ton of fun to watch. And, we'll get a little, Tyreek Hill back in Arrowhead, I think, for round one. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that game's what, on Peacock? I think I got lucky, right? Because it was either going to be the Steelers, Chiefs, which who cares about that game? That game would have been incredibly boring. But I think this one, obviously, much better for Peacock and for that network. But I'm excited. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for this playoffs. The games look this first round. The games look really, really nice. So I don't know about you guys, but I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
Come on, AP. Look who you're talking to. Of course we're excited for the NFL playoffs. Look, what kind of question is that?
Yeah, but I mean, just the matchups. The matchups this week are there are a lot of really good ones. I think it's good for betting, for DFS, and that's not always the case. It's not always the case, but I think it's going to be a treat this year.
Yeah, you'll never find me complaining about NFL playoffs. We got, of course, what is it? 5 games, I think, in the NFL playoffs. A bunch of different slates. It's going to be a really fun weekend. Fun night of football here too, and of course basketball as well. Mangone, how did your Sunday go? And what are you doing? What are you up to on this Monday afternoon here?
Yeah, Sunday could have been better, but it is what it is, right? We closed the season out with Scott Hansen in the Red Zone Network, and now we are off to playoffs. Which, hey, playoffs are a lot of fun. I am not looking forward to these weather games, though. Why do these games? Can we get these games in a dome? I know Holden loves to watch everything in the snow, but I don't need to watch the Chiefs and Dolphins in negative 18-degree weather, it feels like, or whatever it's going to be. It's just – so that's my only gripe about it. I'll be a little bit of a Grinch about that. But I am excited for tonight's game that's in a controlled environment, the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. I mean, it's going to be an awesome game. So we just did the show over on the YouTube channel. So after you watch this, check that out. We broke it all down. We'll be getting all the showdown stuff up for you guys. Bruce does a great job with that. So listen, this is a great time of year, right? Obviously, we love the grind of the football season, but it starts to wind down. But we get some really just fun games too. And we're going to get a ton of great showdown slates as well, which we have tons of showdown content for you. And then it brings us into the NBA, where it starts to just become, more of a prevalent time where we're just always focusing on the NBA. And then, of course, we get the NBA playoffs, which I always absolutely love. And, of course, it never stops. Then we get the baseball, and then I can tell you, DC, that baseball sucks. So.
Whoa. You don't need to take a shot at baseball there at the end of your introduction, but that's all right. We got 3 months till baseball gets here. I'm really looking forward to the college football game tonight. I don't claim to be a college football expert by any means, but I do remember first week of the season, first or second week, Washington was on the slate. And I remember playing them and watching their passing offense. And right away, I was like, man, this looks like a team of pros with the quarterback, the 3 wide receivers, McMillian, Polk, and Odunze. I think are all going to be good pros. And I've been betting Washington all year long, both games against Oregon last week, playing them whenever they're on a slate. And, man, they have not let me down so far. And I'll be honest, I've been on them all year, and they've served me well, so maybe I'm a little biased. I don't think they should be underdogs straight up against Michigan tonight. I think they win this game plus 160, plus 165 out there. I think they've got the way better offense. Michigan's defense, maybe it's good. But when you're playing the Big Ten all year, I don't know. They got to prove it to me against this Washington offense. So that's my take on the game tonight. Really fun showdown for those who are into college football. I know we've got content up on the site for the showdown, and I do think that college football showdown is going to have significant overlay in the flagship. So I've piled 30, 35 entries, all hand built, Mangone. I know that's your style in there. And I'll be looking forward to that.
You hand built 35 entries? That's impressive.
And I'll be back going after we get off the show, and I'll keep piling them in there. So
you're hand building them. I was DC. I saw you had a couple teams up there the other night in the NFL slate, and I was like, oh, look at DC just pumping away at SaberSim. You're hand building tonight. Come on, get into SaberSim.
DC was not only up there last night, but in the 3-max, like the 153
this is
max.
painful, you guys. I was trying to move on.
I know. I'm with you. I was like in every contest I was in, I'm like, oh shit, DC's up top again. Oh shit, there he is again. There's that logo because he doesn't have the RPS logo. He has to have his, he has to outdo us with his own special draft cheat logo. But you do love seeing that logo up top, DC. I like seeing that.
I would change the logo if I was politely asked by the powers that be. But the DC logo has been up on the DraftKings, DraftKings app for quite some time. So it would be painful changing it. But maybe we'll get there after the next big shipper over on DraftKings.
Everyone is on Washington, it seems like. So that's interesting. I think it per our guy JBC, it's a true squares versus sharps type of betting night is what he was saying in the Discord.
I know he's on the Michigan side, but I think he's wrong on this one. But we shall see. Sometimes the squares get there, so I'll be hoping. I literally blindly tail the premiums, so I have to be. But I will say, I don't know about you guys. I bet that. I bet the side with the premiums, which obviously you could tell what that is. By how we're talking, but I built my showdown lineups by just not Washington onslaughts, but basically playing like an over script, like getting all those receivers, like expecting a lot of points, slightly under on the running game. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. Besides my hot take on the Washington's passing offense putting up points, I'll give one more tidbit before we move to basketball. I think Washington's running back, Dylan Johnson, I think he's playing this game hurt. I mean, you saw him crumple down. I mean, he was playing hurt all last week. He crumpled down in the last drive of the game. You remember that? Like, I have a hard time believing he's good to go. But we're going to get vultured at the one-man going by Mr. Johnson once again, right?
Yeah, actually, I was in Houston this past weekend seeing a foot specialist, so maybe Dylan Johnson was there as well. But I think he's banged up, man. Like I don't know. I mean, the thing though is like he is a college kid, and I don't know, could he be fine for like the 3 hours? Yeah, I think he could. But I think the point that we're getting at is there's a lot of uncertainty there. So with the uncertainty, I want to know what the ownership is going to be. I want to see what everyone's thinking, and then I'll make that snap call as we get closer. That's one of those tough things to kind of figure out, I think, until we get closer and see him warming up. But listen, he's a hard click right now. So on that college football slate, his ownership is going to be very low.
I think it'll be higher than you think. He's a lead running back. And I think people, making lineups, they're not necessarily aware that he's hurt or could be hurt. So
he does have the P tag next to him in DraftKings, which I think is very important. So I think
he stands out with the P tag. People are like, oh, this probable guy, I'll get him in there. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think it sticks out even if you were someone that was nervous about it. Like if you're talking to Joe Schmo off the street who watches college football on Saturdays, right, with the boys, but isn't super in tune, but he's gonna play this, they're just gonna assume he's good to go, right? I'm likely gonna be more under on him in general. So I'll likely be rooting for the other running backs that we've talked about on the shows.
Yeah, I got a full fade on Mr. Johnson on all my teams, so we shall see.
Our friend Angela, upset about the running back takes yesterday. Should have listened. Listened off the chalk. Our guy Snyder all over Joe Mixon yesterday, and hey, if I would have known that Derrick Henry was going to make a speech after the game, I would have been all in on King Henry. I did not know that Derrick Henry was going to be giving the microphone and making a speech after that game. Had we known that, we would have shoved all the chips in the middle on Mr. King Henry. But I got burnt by the cheap running backs yesterday as well. Angela,
they all busted, right? Pierre,
they were all terrible.
Yeah,
except for Tajay Spears, who I'd been on the last 3 weeks, and then I get off for these random dudes that, oh man. Happens. It happens.
We got to move on from Sunday.
Can I go back to one thing from I just?
It's only 5 games, pretty much.
Chris said it's NFL and it's mostly played in the cold. Chris, you understand that Kansas City Chief game is going to be 0 degrees. It's not going to.
It's going to be terrible. It's supposed to be like negative like 30.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's not going to be a real football game. If you remember when the Packers, which I'm a little salty about still, lost to the Niners in that game, and it wasn't a real football game. It's not going to be.
It's a huge advantage for Casey. So again, the Casey haters, I apologize right out of the gate because that is a huge advantage for them being that cold. I will say more of a defensive, slow-paced game. One that I'm not touching in DFS. I'll tell you that.
Cue up the GIF. You can't keep getting away with it, right? From Breaking Bad.
I know.
That is exactly what that is right there. You guys are going to get away with it.
I know, man.
We're a week out from the NFL playoffs, but I'll tell you what to do with that Chiefs-Miami game. Play the Chiefs defense and play Isaiah Pacheco, and you'll be sitting good on the Miami and Chiefs game because Tua in that Miami offense ain't doing shit in the Kansas City and the Colts.
Will Pacheco run as hard in negative 30-degree weather? That's what I want to
harder. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
He'll run harder.
He's going to punish those defenders.
AT, that is a Rutgers University. He plays in the cold out.
That's true.
Don't worry. He's going to grind.
He'll be ready. He'll be all right.
Nice NBA talk. Hey, we did it. We succeeded. The show rarely ever does that. We're not even like some of the shows go 30 minutes before they talk about the slate. We're 11 minutes in. I mean, this is not too bad.
We got Coach DC hosting, so we won't go more than 15 minutes off topic.
Well, DC, before I go back into this, you said Coach DC. Is Coach DC back in my corner in March? Do I have Coach back on my side?
Of course. Can't wait. We got we'll move on, but we got RPS party talk heating up. It's going to be a fun March Madness party with the crew. But for now, we will move to the NBA. We got 6 games to talk about. We'll go game by game. As always, first game listed on the DraftKings slate. There are 3 of them in this early 7 p.m. Eastern time window. Boston and Indiana. Boston favored by 3 here, 247 total. Significant injury news on both sides, or at least potential injury news on Indiana. We already do know Jason Tatum, Sam Hauser ruled out. Porzingis is in. He left last game with an eye injury. Looks like he should be good to go for this one. And then on the Indiana side, several guys questionable. Actually, just 3 guys that really matter. Bruce Brown, Isaiah Jackson, Andrew Nembhard, all questionable to play. I do think all 3 of them have a decent chance to play in this game, but of course, you never know in the NBA. This is obviously the first game of the night, so we will get this news prior to lock. But yeah, obviously AP, Hauser, Tatum out, plenty of minutes, usage to go around among the other Boston guys. With those 2 out, talk to me, Boston and Indiana, a pretty good game here to kick off the slate.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, the pace is still going to be very nice. And in addition to that, we have a key piece out in Jason Tatum. When you take him off the court, and it's not like Tatum is a guy that misses like a lot of time. He's out there, plays most games. And so it's not like the sample is that great. When you go and take him off the court and you're looking at usage rates, fantasy point per minute adjustments, it's not fully telling because what you're getting is kind of the rotational stuff there. And Boston is a team that plays a very tight rotation. But what we do see is obviously Jaylen Brown smashes, locks in an additional or has performed an additional 6.5, average fantasy point per minute speaking. And then usage obviously ticks up for Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jaylen Brown as well. Drew Holiday is the one guy that's just like, I think it was our guy Big T that talked about him. Once the playoffs get here and the games really start to matter, that's when we're gonna want to consider Drew Holiday a little bit more. Right now, it's the Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis show. I will say, from a rotation standpoint, I mean, we do want to see the starting lineup. I think that they start Al Horford. I think that's going to be the standard route that we see. He's usually the first off the bench. He performed very nicely in this matchup when Porzingis went out. They played 2 days ago. 39 piece over on DraftKings, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. So just like how involved he was in the offense, I think is really interesting. And, obviously the same matchup here doesn't mean that the game's going to play out in the same format, but it looks like all the ownership is going to Brown, White, Porzingis. And so Al Horford, I'm sure he's going to get some ownership. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to get some ownership, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. I have a lot of interest in Al Horford. So the Boston side of this game is going to be one to prioritize, and it's going to be different if you're playing single entry, cash, 3-max versus like full 150 in multi-entry formats. I want, likely at least two Boston guys on most teams. Now it's going to be interesting. I have most of my stuff in, but I haven't ran any builds yet, so I don't know exactly what I'm getting at, because the Bucks situation is also going to be one that we want to pay close attention to. And there's going to be some plays in that game that we just have to prioritize as well. So it makes the slate kind of easy on paper, like easy on the surface, but that's not always the case. Obviously we're all playing against each other, and you got to get different somehow. But I would not fade Boston here. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Porzingis, they, on paper, projection-wise, grade out as very, very good plays. I think Al Horford is really intriguing in tournaments as well at 6'6". And then the rotational pieces, O'Shea Brissett, I think, gets a decent run off the bench here. Peyton Pritchard has been another one of their staples. I don't think like a guy like Svi is going to factor in too much. He's a flat 3K, but we have another almost flat 3K piece in Andre Jackson that we'll talk about later, who's 3-1. So I don't think you need to reach with a guy like Svi. I think you stick to the starters and then maybe one or two rotational pieces in Pritchard or Brissett. And then the Pacers side for me, is easy. It's been easy for a while now. It's basically Halliburton or a move on, depending on what the slate looks like. This looks like a slate where it's Halliburton or move on. Sure, you could make the case for like a Jalen Smith, 4-7, but I just don't trust the Rick Carlisle rotations for this Pacers team. So obviously it's a different story if you're running 150. You can mix those guys in, but I'm not too high on that side of it, on that side of the game outside of Halliburton.
Yeah, I think AP nailed a lot of it, Mangone. I guess the one thing maybe I'll slight disagree. I like Pritchard as the fourth guy over Horford, partly just due to the savings, obviously, with some of the big spends we've got. And yeah, like when you do run the numbers with Tatum, Hauser off the court, it's not surprising. Jaylen Brown does better. Porzingis does better. The somewhat surprising thing to me was just how much better Derek White is in this situation. He gets a massive bump, whereas, as AP mentioned, Drew Holiday really doesn't. It seems like Drew Holiday is just kind of content to, play a defensive role, fourth option on the offense, whatever it is. So, yeah, looks straightforward to me. I'm going to have a ton of Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis in that order for me in this game, once you factor in their price and ownership. But all three of the guys are great plays. I think you can play all three on the same team. And I would play at least one of those guys, probably at least two on most lineups. And then Pritchard, my fourth favorite Celtic. Where do you stand with the Celtics, and any Pacers for you, Travis?
Yeah, I think, we already kind of saw this once a little bit this year. I think we saw Tatum miss, and I think Porzingis was not in that one game. And I think the show was Brown, it was Drew, and it was Derek White. And I am still kicking myself for not getting to Derek White. I remember that was when I was in Florida and I was super tilted because I wanted to get to Derek White and I couldn't because of pricing. And I just landed on Drew Holiday. Not making that mistake again here. I think Derek White is better than Drew Holiday. I know the pricing does matter, but I truly think it's White over him. I mean, if you look at Derek White's career, all throughout this man's career, he's always gotten better and better everywhere he goes, and everyone just doubts it. Like, I wouldn't doubt if this guy went to a team and just was the star by himself at this point. He just always proves people wrong. It's insane what he keeps doing when he gets the usage. And so I'm in on him, but I think Jaylen Brown is the best option. Then it's followed by Porzingis, then Derek White. After that, I'd even go a step ahead and say, point per dollar wise, I think I like Peyton Pritchard even over Drew Holiday at 4.3K. I just think he's a really good value in this spot. Whenever we see guys sit, he just gets good usage that goes his way because there's no one else on this team, right? I mean, it's just they're a great 6 to 8 players, but the cliff drops off fast, and that's fine for playoffs and all. But they definitely need a little more depth, which I know they're trying to do in free agency, which we'll talk about when we got to get closer to the deadline. But yeah, anyways, Peyton Pritchard, 4.3K. You have to like him in DFS as a value. I think he's a really good play. Like I said, that's my rankings. It's Jaylen Brown 1, Porzingis 2, White 3, Pritchard 4. That's how I would rank the Celtics out today. When it comes to the Indiana Pacers, that's a bit of a tougher spot. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that this game starts at 7 o'clock. Okay. If you decide to play guys on the Celtics side, you might not be able to get to some of these Bucks later on, right? So you got to make decisions early on that. That's going to be key. And Indiana will have that news in time. That's going to be really important. On their injury report, it's Bruce Brown, questionable, Kendall Brown, Isaiah Jackson, Nemhard. I mean, it's a laundry list of guys that are questionable. I don't know how to tackle it without the information, but I do know I'm likely going to be lower on the Pacers today because I feel like I already have enough news and already enough good plays that I don't need to go to as many Pacers. So I kind of agree with AP's point. If you do want to spend up for someone, you can make a case for a Halliburton, but I just don't see myself getting to the Pacers that much today. So I am just kind of fading them, I think, mainly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, just a brutal matchup for Halliburton against this good defense. Two great defenders in Derek White, Drew Holiday. I think the best defensive backcourt in the NBA. So yeah, I won't be getting to Halliburton tonight. I just can't play him over, guys like Giannis. I mean, and then all the Boston guys, White, Brown, Porzingis. Once you factor in the savings you get, I'll take all those guys over Halliburton. I'm kind of hoping that at least one or two of the questionable Indiana guys play, because I don't really want to break up my teams that I've built so far to fit in, Indiana wing pieces. But maybe it'd be a lure for some people that would take them off some of the better plays. So, yeah, that's Indiana and Boston. Next game listed on the slate is OKC and Washington. Washington Wizards. OKC favored by 10.5 here. 246 total. Big total is always that we see in Wizards games. Both teams pretty much fully healthy, though. Obviously, you expect fantasy points from OKC in bunches. AP, it seems like both of us have kind of sworn off Washington as much as we can. You can't do it every slate, but this does seem like a slate where you don't need to go to the Wizards with everybody healthy. I'm certainly not planning on playing any Wizards tonight. Thunder, though, yeah, you can go here. I think Gilgeous-Alexander makes a lot of sense with the value that we have tonight. He should smash this team, no question about it. Obviously, the other guys are in play as well, but what do you see, AP, OKC, and Washington Wizards?
Yeah, I mean, I love, so like a couple things. I love pace, teams that play with a lot of pace. It's always going to catch my eye, and that's the Wizards. But they play no defense. Their team is just poorly constructed, top to bottom. They don't have an identity. They don't have a true number one. Kyle Kuzma, they're trying to make him that, but he's obviously not ready yet. And Poole, who knows what Poole is. And OKC is a very, very good basketball team. Double-digit favorites on the road, a big total here. So a couple things, and it makes this slate interesting. If this game stays close, yeah, Shea could outscore everyone on this slate. The problem is, and we see it time and time again, the NBA is a game of runs. And the problem is when these teams, when they go on the runs against the Wizards rarely ever respond and have that run on their own. And then a 10-point lead turns into a 25-point lead. And then Wes Unseld Jr. just throws in the towel and he lets, Koulibaly get his run along with like Muscala and, DeLon Wright, who's been terrible. And they never have a chance to get back. And I'm not saying that like Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma would be the guys that could get them back into a game. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is they're a bad basketball team. They're a really bad basketball team. You need high offensive efficiency for them to stay in games because they're not playing any defense at all. And where is that going to come from? I mean, this matchup, I think is even really really bad for the Wizards. I mean, if you think of where scoring is going to come from, I mean, if Lou Dort, like the thing with Jordan Poole right now, just running your standard stuff, he has to hit at somewhat of a decent clip because he's 5,700. And I kind of like what they did because I want to almost underproject them, assuming he gets the Lou Dort matchup. And you take Poole out of the equation, which, I mean, that's what teams have been doing along with him just being really bad. It's going to put all the pressure on Denny Avdia and Kyle Kuzma, and then, Tyus Jones and Gafford as well. So we did see a little fight from them in the last game that they played against the Knicks. The Knicks were just steamrolling them, and they came out in the third quarter with a little bit, a little bit more motivation, and we'll see what happens here, though. From a matchup standpoint, if the game stays close, you want to have interest in Shea. The other way to attack this game, I'm looking at like values like Andre Jackson that we're going to talk about. Highly, highly elite value, especially if he starts for the Bucks with how thin they are. And then, obviously like Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. I'm telling you, I've been playing these reserve players against the Wizards, reserve players that actually have usage, offensive usage, and can hit threes. And I've been having a lot of success with it. And so looking at guys like Cason Wallace and Isaiah Joe, it's more so like a multi-entry play. But in like MMA formats, these guys are definitely in play on a slate like this. They're going to go completely unknown because of the value that we have later. And now that value is arguably a lot better. But again, when you're playing alongside Giannis, and I'm talking about Andre Jackson and Chris Middleton, you're not going to have that much usage versus if this game blows out, a guy like Cason Wallace could absolutely smash. So that's where I think this game is really interesting. And I'm not trying to advocate playing like a blowout narrative. It's just we see it time and time against this terrible Wizards team. And I think it's a good talking point. So outside of that, it's you really to play the Chets, the Sheas, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, the starters, you need the fight from the Wizards side, or else these guys are going to be sitting on the bench in the fourth quarter. That's the risk here, and that's what I'm trying to really analyze myself. And so I don't know the best way to do it. Maybe you create some rules, like if Shea is in your lineup, maybe you have one piece like a Denny or Kyle Kuzma on the other side. Stacking isn't something that I traditionally do in the NBA at all, but this might be a scenario where you do want that run back because for him to get there, you're likely going to need this game to be somewhat close. And I just have a tough time seeing that tonight.
Yeah, good stuff there, AP. And I kind of like that Cason Wallace call. I'll be honest, I wasn't really on him. He's going to have no ownership. I can look it up here quick. Okay, yeah, like 4 or 5% ownership. He's cheap, 3,600. And I did look it up while you're talking about him. He has closed both of the last 2 blowouts for OKC, not like to the point where he checked into the game with like 3 or 4 minutes to go when OKC had the blowout going on. So yeah, the Cason Wallace is an interesting play, playing the blowout narrative. And then also, he should be fine anyway, right? At 3,600, he'll get you some fantasy points, even if it doesn't go his way. So that's an interesting call. Mangone, let's go to you, OKC and the Wizards.
Yeah, I got one question. Our guy Beanair says, unbelievable insight, Andrew. And I agree. AP brought up some really good insight there. He said, I'd follow you into war, though. But what does that say about the guy that follows Danny DeVito and Tyrod Taylor into war, right? That's all I'm going to say. So,
Tyrod was awesome yesterday. You back off Tyrod. He was fantastic yesterday.
Yeah,
I was worried there for a little bit because he got hurt early on, right?
He got hurt like twice in the game. And then he also
doesn't matter what I got
vultured a couple times. He could have had like 5 TDs in that game. But anyway, we got to stay away from NFL. Your turn, Mango.
Of course. But I derailed the show a little bit. But the point is, I thought it was a really good point by AP of how to handle this Wizards team, right? Like, they don't go on runs, right? It's just absolutely brutal. Mike Muscala revenge. That's a good one. I do have a couple other revenge ones that I'll mention in a little bit. I didn't think a Mike Muscala revenge narrative was on the table today, but it is. But I'm doing my best to stay away from these guys. Now, the one thing you could argue is, for sure, centers against Washington always crush, right? So could you go Chet Holmgren over Porzingis? And could Chet Holmgren outscore Porzingis? Yes, he could. But obviously, likelihood is Porzingis outscores him, of course, in the matchup against Indiana. Depends what you think of the ownership, yada, yada, yada. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, my issue is like, I'm just noticing on this slate, a lot of the good plays I feel like I want to spend my salary on today. And I don't think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be the way that I do it. I think I'm going to get different, more of my cheaper options on this slate. And that's why I just don't think I'm going to get the SGA. And then when it comes to getting different, do I want to get different with the Wizards? Like, for instance, when I ran stuff, I saw Jordan Poole was popping, and I saw the 5.6 tag, and I was like, could I get behind it? I think there's a ceiling there, but then I was like, I can't actually back it. Like, I can't really play Jordan Poole, and I'm not going to. So I took him off my content. If I did play anyone, it'd probably be Tyus Jones. That's the guy I'd feel a little bit safer about. But all in all, I'm going to stay away from this game. This feels like a really good game to be under on for me. But I agree with AP's points. If you are MMEing today, I think he brought up some really good points with these cheap value plays. And what that can do for your full lineup is it can allow you to maybe jam in one of these really good, expensive plays in there with your teams and give you a little bit of a unique construction.
Yeah, that's OKC and the Wizards. I'll say this, DraftKings pricing man, if you're watching, I know you are. I know you're watching our show. Go ahead and lower Jordan Poole's price tag on a nightly basis to like 4.9K. Let's get 35, 40% of the field going down with Jordan Poole every night.
He would be trending every night on Twitter because everyone would be so mad. Because optimizers would be forcing him in.
Yes.
Just because and when he gets no run, like in the, late in the third quarter. I mean, all right. So my last comment though in this game, assuming what OKC does for the Wizards, there has to be Kyle Kuzma. He has the best matchup in my opinion. I'm not saying anyone has that good of a matchup, but if the Wizards keep it close, it has to be Kyle Kuzma. That's all I'm gonna say there.
All right, we'll move on to the third 7 p.m. Eastern time game. It is Chicago and Charlotte. 215 total in this one. We've seen these Chicago Bulls totals. They've been low all year, but it seems like they've been falling further and further. Pretty crazy low total considering Charlotte is in the game. We do have significant injury news on the Charlotte side. Obviously, LaMelo remains out. Should be back in a couple games. That'll be nice. Maybe we can start playing a little bit of Hornets. I really haven't played much of them in the last month or so. But Melo will be joined on the bench by PJ Washington. Most importantly, Gordon Hayward remains out, obviously, and so does Mark Williams. So they're going to be shorthanded. Charlotte will. They were last game as well. Washington got hurt pretty early in that game, and Charlotte responded by playing like 11 guys and just was a total mess, which I would kind of expect here. This is a repeat game. These two teams just played in their last game. Was very low scoring in that first one, expected to be so tonight. Chicago also has some guys questionable. Caruso, Levine, Patrick Williams, all questionable. I kind of think they all are likely to play, although Levine, I think, wasn't at shoot-around. Not 100% sure on that. We'll go to you first, Mangone, on this one. I'm not very excited about this game unless we get, unless Levine, Caruso sit, then, yeah, maybe you can make a case for guys like Kobe White and DeRozan. But as it stands right now, this isn't a game I plan to have a lot of. What about you, Travis?
Yeah, I just picked my phone up because the chat said Cody Martin got ruled out, so I got the notifications flying through. We do have Cody Martin ruled out. There could be a couple more filing in as well. At least the Bulls, though, obviously we got who knows who's going to play in this game with those guys. Yeah. So that's it's tough to really give all the analysis on it. But to be fair, I talked about wanting to get different with some values, and like the Bulls could have value that emerges that is intriguing, right? We could see a Dalen Terry pop up as 3-7 as a really interesting value play, right? That's one guy that I think I want to mention right now. So I think he's going to be someone that you'd have to consider. Patrick Williams, I do think he does fit this game environment well. And if he was in and other guys were out, you could make a case that 4.7K is a little bit too cheap, but we don't have all that Bulls news. Charlotte side of the ball, they are missing a bunch of options, right? It's mainly Rozier and Bridges. Those are the two guys. I think the guy, if I have to pick one, the guy to like is Rozier, just because I think if they both hit their ceiling, Rozier, when he hits his ceiling is just so much higher than someone like Bridges, right? Where I think it's kind of like wins you the slate upside, right? So I think Rozier at 8.3 would be one that I wouldn't mind. Brandon Miller, I just think he's overpriced at 6.3 in this situation. I am not excited about him. Nick Richards at 5.7. Sure, they need his size, but I don't think I need to get there. And if for some reason, like there was another surprise scratch, right, then we would really look to talk about some of these values and consider them. But my one problem right now is I don't know who's in and out, right? That's going to be a key factor here. So this does feel like a game to be a bit under on. And I'll admit, this slate feels like a very difficult slate to get different, right? Like if you run, like let's say whatever optimizer you're using around the industry, could be Sabres, could be any of them, right? Could be hand building. If you hand built and then your buddy hand built, you might hand built the same thing today, right? So try to find some spots to maybe get unique throughout your lineups, because right now everyone's playing the same stuff. And in those moments, maybe it's like still fading these bad games, but fading a very high owned spot that we talked about that we don't think is as great of a play, right? So that's some other talking points to think about with this slate, because the more we keep going through it and the more that I've looked at it, it just seems like everyone's going to be playing the same stuff, right? Because it's 6 games, but we've already talked about 2 games that are a bit rough. We got a couple more rough games, and there's just 2 games that people are keying in on.
Yeah, everyone's doing what I'm doing, playing a full roster of Bucks and Celtics, and moving on from there. I know I'll be holding hands with the field. I'm okay with that today, Mangone, though. I think these guys are going to come through. But let's go to.
You see, it's okay to do that, right? But the thing that I like to really touch on is you can still play good plays. But if you fade one play that's like 60% owned, instantly no one has them, right? Like, it's just like that's already eliminating a lot of the field. So maybe just play the good plays. You don't have to look for the 2% guy, but maybe it's a night where you faded a 60% play, but you mixed and matched like guys that are between like 50 and 10%. And at the end of the night, you look at the top of the leaderboard and you go, how did I not build that line?
Yeah, something like maybe you play Case and Wallace instead of Beauchamp, right? Something like that. Get you one different piece in there. Let's go to UAP, Chicago, Charlotte. You got anything for us here?
Weston Davis, won't Kuzma get Dort on him? I would like that for Kuzma. Kuzma's what, like 6'10", Lou Dort like 6'4". I think that would be a better matchup. But I think Lou Dort.
AP, Kyle Kuzma once said that he took a game winner with LeBron on the court, and they asked him about it. He said, I was taking that shot if Jesus was covering me. So Kyle Kuzma does not care who is covering me.
Right,
He's
right. So Bulls Hornets, this game, the last time that they played, I think it had 90. Each team had 94 possessions. Like in today's NBA, that makes me absolutely want to puke. And we were talking in Discord with our guy Bogarts, and he was saying, "Don't we want all the Hornets on the slate?" I just, given the pace and the expectations for like no scoring at all in this game, even though we have a very thin Hornets team, I still don't know if I'm that interested. I mean, you have a lot of guys here that just have no usage. It all has to come down to Miles Bridges or Terry Rozier. I have a little bit of interest in Terry Rozier. I think he's a fine tournament play. But like some of these other, like Bryce McGowan's, no, like absolutely no way. I mean, he's 3.9 if he starts. I think it really depends. If he was going to be really high owned, I would probably want to get off of him.
But that news, AP. McGowan's is in the starting lineup. Starting lineup, Rozier, McGowan's, Miller, Bridges, and Richards.
So, I mean, it is a good debate then. I mean, if you think he's going to be very popular, I think he's had 4 games all year where he has exceeded 20 DraftKings points. And one of those games, I believe he did start, it was against the Raptors, 25. So I don't think he's like a play that you X out, but in comparing different values on this slate, I don't think he's like a lock or anything like that. I think he's a pretty fringe value. This is a guy that, one, the pace is going to be terrible in this game. So the opportunity already is a little bit lower, and he's what, like a 4th option, even as a starter here. I mean, Nick Richards doesn't do much outside of like rebounds and putbacks. And then it's Rozier, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, and then Bryce McGowan. So he's 4th option.
I ran the numbers for Charlotte with Cody Martin, Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams, PJ Washington, all off the court. Do you want to guess what McGowan's averages fantasy points per 36? Got 136 minute sample size per 36.
I was going to say, well, I don't know what the math is. I was going to say a 0.7 average per minute. So whoever has the math on that would
about
be
right. Per 36.
Like 24, 25 DraftKings points.
21.
All right. Yeah,
so that's about as low as you're going to get, especially with all these guys off the court. And he is by no means guaranteed anywhere close to 36 minutes. So I at least am not going down the McGowan straight. I'm sure people are going to play him. He's a starter. It's the first game of the night, and so you can kind of take the 3,900. But
he's a Nebraska guy too.
I said the same thing about Joe Mixon yesterday, and whenever I rag on these guys too much, they come through in a big way. So I'll stop, but I personally don't think McGowan's is a very good play if he gets any ownership at all, which I do think he will get at least some ownership. Any thoughts there? Go ahead.
Yeah, so like here's how you tackle it though. Go over to SaberSim, through RPS and look at what the projection is. You can usually what I do is I average our RPS projections with SaberSim. I use that as my base projection. And if I'm lower, if I'm a seller on a guy like that, which I'm a seller on Bryce McGowan's, I'm not just Xing him out. I may start off by bumping him down 1.5 and then may, get a little bit more aggressive if I'm getting a lot of them. Maybe I go 2 points, 2.5 points, but I'm not Xing out a guy like that. That's my take, and that's my preferred route on handling a situation like that. But like the backups like Nick Smith, their backup center. I mean, I don't think I'm going to get to anyone like that. So it's really Terry Rozier or Miles Bridges and move on. Maybe a little sprinkle of McGowan's. And the Bulls, I'm completely off, assuming that all of the Q10. So I think it was Patrick Williams was the guy that didn't. He's the only one that missed practice. So Caruso practiced. So I'm working on the assumption that we get Levine, we get Caruso, and that Pat Will is potentially the one that's truly questionable since he did not practice.
Yeah, we did get news. The Indiana guys are all in. Nembhard, Jackson, Brown, all going to play tonight, it looks like. So I think you can, or at least I am pretty much writing off Indiana for the most part. Mangone, any thoughts on McGowan's or further thoughts on Chicago and Charlotte now that we got the news?
Yeah, it's super hard to get behind McGowan's. Like, for instance, if I played, I know they're not the same position, but like I play Ish Smith over him at 4-1. Like the thing about Ish Smith, at least I feel like, look at his game log. He gets you at least double digits. And I'm not saying I want to play it, but like if we're advocating for something, I'd rather do that, right? And he's a good fantasy point per minute producer, and I just can't get behind a lot of these plays for sure.
I think you're kind of the same approach as me, Mangone. You'd rather, if two guys are projected similar, I want the guy that's a higher point per minute with lower minute projection than other way around, because there's just more upside that way, right? Because there's multiple ways to fall into more minutes. There's not really, obviously you can score more than your season average fantasy point per minute, but that can't really just, I think people get the idea.
Here's a great segue, DC, right? Like even if someone gets in foul trouble, right, or tweaks an injury, these are random things you can fall into, and this is the segue. Why did we play Tari Eason so much last year in the 4K range? Because if we had lack of value, we'd go to Tari Eason because all the usage he soaks up. And he's shown it all year long now, and now he's out of the lineup for the next game coming up. And we'll talk about his usage and what we want to do with it.
Absolutely. Let's go to that game, Houston and Miami. Another low total, sitting at 220. Miami favored by 4 at home here against Houston. As Mangone mentioned, Tari Eason gets this game out alongside Dylan Brooks. So definitely some usage and minutes open on the wing there for Houston tonight. For Miami, they've got injury news as well. Jimmy Butler going to miss. He's missed quite a few games recently. He'll be joined on the sideline by Caleb Martin. Looks like Haywood Highsmith will return this game, and Kyle Lowry, who was questionable earlier, going to play in this one in all likelihood. AP, we'll start with you again. Houston, Miami. I personally don't love this game, but that's kind of my approach to every game except Boston and Milwaukee. What do you see here? Houston and Miami, anything you want to get to?
Yeah, another lower total type of game where, there are some key pieces out, but we've seen this situation a little bit more than some of the other spots. And, as far as the Heat go, Jaime Jaquez, he's been incredible. I'm leaving him in my player pool. But man, I don't think he's like a play that you build around. They have a lot of different, like Miami has a lot of different routes that they can go, especially with Highsmith back. Like Jovic, he's been the guy getting the start. I don't even think like that starting role is safe here. So Miami has enough bodies to where I'm not really prioritizing anyone. I think Tyler Hero is always going to be interesting for tournaments. The guy is really taking his game to another level. But again, look at his last start against the Suns. He still has a floor. Despite the high usage rate, he still can, shoot very poorly and go 4 for 17, which he did last game. So I don't think I'm really prioritizing anyone like that. Bam, I think Bam Adebayo 8-8. I mean, it's fine, but again, a matchup against Şengün is not an easy one. Şengün good at getting opposing centers into fouls, foul risk there. So, and then Şengün on the other side, Bam Adebayo is a very, very good defender. So I find myself under on this game, and I feel pretty good about that. There's 2 games that I'm really, actually 3 games that I'm really under on tonight. So for me, and again, that's eating a lot of chalk, but this is NBA. We have these spots. You just have to target and find a little way to get different. That's what you need to do on slates like this. And I don't think, I mean, like Tyler Hero, mixing him in a little bit, I think is a fine way to go. But on the other side of this game, I mean, you could have a sprinkle of Fred VanVleet, a sprinkle of Jalen Green, but these aren't plays that I have a ton of interest in. Jabari Smith forced to play a lot of minutes. I'm leaving him in my player pool, but not guys that I am, first in or building around as like a core play at all. So again, under on this game. I will say I do have slightly more interest in comparison to like the Bulls Hornets game. So if that helps anyone out a little bit more, but again, not a game that I have a ton of interest in.
We talked AP off of Jason Tate for good, Mangone. That was one thing we did well for our friend over there. No Jason Tate for AP.
He doesn't do anything, so no.
So that was good of us.
In my defense, wasn't he like 3K, 3.8 or something like that? I mean, if he was 3.7, 3.8 and starting, I would have a little bit more interest.
I think he was 4.3 that day. But yeah, I mean, and that was the day we were struggling for value for sure.
Well, DraftKings guy, while you're lowering Jordan Poole's price, go ahead and lower Jason Tate as well. We can get more people going down the toilet with Mr. Tate. Man, go on your thoughts here. Houston, Miami.
I mean, one thing I think I do a pretty good job of is just like, I think I can identify situations before others when it comes to like the usage and everything. And, I regret last week not talking about Amen Thompson enough, and he's been good. The minutes haven't been there, but like, it's like if you need a 3.9K guy, I don't feel like we need those guys on this slate, and there's other alternatives already. But I do think like if I looked up at the top of the leaderboard tonight and Amen Thompson was on the winner, it wouldn't totally surprise me. I'm just going to mention that because I do think he's someone that's slightly getting into the mix more, and you could see them running their lineups and being like, why are we playing Jason Tate? We should be playing Amen Thompson, right? Like I could see it going that way a little bit. So I do think he is someone that we have to consider a little bit. I know Cam Whitmore's minutes have trended up a little bit. They are very shaky. And again, these guys at 3.8, I just don't know how much we need to get them. And he's only small forward eligible. The guy I really want to talk about is Jabari Smith Jr. because I just think at 6.6K, there's just guys that have I can win you the slate upside, right? And he's one of them. At 6.6K, he could drop 50 in this matchup. Now, this matchup is not easy, right? I mean, Miami's just more of a slower paced game typically. But I think at 6'6", he's a very good forward option that I want to consider. So I like Jabari Smith Jr. He's going to be a play that I definitely look at. Şengün, fine tournament contrarian spend up if you want to. But in the matchup stuff, and I just think it's not the correct route to build with on this slate. So I'm not interested in him. I know Jeff Green just got 34 minutes against Milwaukee. He only got 24 DK. Not really dying to play Jeff Green here as an option. And then Fred VanVleet at 8K. I just think he's a little overpriced for some of these other studs that we currently have on this slate. So, So Falik, all I'm saying is Falik is now getting on me about, we just beat Milwaukee. Let's play Amen Thompson over Jason Tate. Falik, all I'm saying is I wouldn't be shocked by the end of the year if it trends a different way, right? That's all. You just beat Milwaukee in one regular season game in January. Who cares? Like, it's just, point I'm getting at is I don't know. Amen Thompson could be way more talented, and you see players grow throughout the season, and we want to get ahead of the curve on that. Not saying today is for sure the day, but I do think that that's one of those younger players that as we get into the season, the dude's not going to be 3.9K, and value is tough to get to these days. So, yeah.
Kevin, just one time, could you make your initial appearance in chat with a compliment? Say, hey, that's a good point you made, Mangone. Or yeah, DC, I do like that call. You coming in here with the negativity. You never comment on the chat, and then whenever you do, it's to call out some random aside comment that we made.
It's just DC when young guys start getting in the lineup more, sometimes they push people out of the lineup. Did anyone know who Brandon Podziemski was before the start of the season? I mean, I watch the NBA a lot. I didn't know that much about him. And sometimes guys just push their way into the lineup. And I'm just saying he's getting minutes, and it seems like he's playing some decent basketball.
All right. We'll move on to the game of the night, Utah and Milwaukee. Obviously, a really good game environment here. Milwaukee favored by 8, 242 total. And, of course, the big news is on the Milwaukee side. Damian Lillard going to miss this game. He'll be joined on the sideline by Cam Payne. So the 2 point guards for Milwaukee are both out. Obviously, they've got guys that can create in Middleton and Giannis. Jake Crowder also remains out for Milwaukee. He's been out a while. Utah, on the other hand, should be fully healthy for this game. This is just an epic smash spot for Milwaukee. AP. One thing I noticed, outside of kind of the obvious, these teams are number 1 and number 2 in the NBA in transition field goal attempts allowed. So this game should be roaring back and forth. Another thing the Jazz really suck at is defending above the break threes. So guys like Brook Lopez, Malik Beasley, I think are going to fire from deep. Hard for me to get away from Milwaukee in this one. I suppose you could see a blowout, but even in that case, I think some of the guys that people are playing, guys like Jackson, Beauchamp, would probably be out there anyway, or at least have a chance to be. I'm not fading the Milwaukee Bucks here, AP. I know you're not either. Question is, how many do you want to play? I'll give my opinion after you guys go, but talk to us, AP, Milwaukee and Utah.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis Smith, a blowout which way? Like, this Utah team, like, if you're paying attention and if you're watching right now, this Utah team is not bad. They've been playing good basketball. They've been stealing wins, and they're on a road stretch right now. And they have been really competitive, and they have one of the most frustrating rotations that you can possibly have for DFS. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating, but they are winning, and that's what they care about. That's what matters. And for us, that should make this game like this should be a competitive game tonight. I don't think the Bucks are gonna. What is it? What is the spread here? So Milwaukee by 8. I don't know. I mean, if I had to, I'm not betting this game, but if I had to take a side here, I'd probably sprinkle a little bit on the Jazz just because they are on kind of a heater right now. They are playing pretty well. Philly, they had a nice stretch at home. They played the Pelicans pretty close, beat the Raptors. I mean, it's not like their schedule has been crazy tough right now, but they're getting wins. And that's after having a horrendous start to the season. So they are definitely starting to find something. And look, Malik Beasley is probably going to start here. He's going to be forced to play some minutes. And this has been one of the worst backcourts in the league as far as defending goes. And you hit the nail on the head, DC. The transition defense for both teams has been horrendous. I mean, if anything, we should bet the overs tonight. I do have interest in the overs more so than the sides. And here's what's also funny is Bobby Portis, I mean, it's not funny, but he's having a down year. Brolos, he's fine. Middleton's fine. Dame having a down year as well. And then Beasley kind of sucks. But it's funny, like Giannis, didn't he just call out the equipment manager? Like from the Ultimate, did you see that quote? Like he's calling
I think it was a joke. But
was it a joke? Okay, well, I've been on the joke.
His quote was, it starts with the equipment manager washing clothing like better. You know what I mean? Like he called everyone out. He said everyone's got to be better, including the equipment manager. So
I mean, that surely had to be a joke. I would assume.
But
so.
If it weren't, I was laughing because Giannis is actually having an awesome year. I mean, he's been insane. He's been I made him as a core play on the heat map. I honestly that is who I want to start my builds around because look, like Jaylen Brown's going to get ownership. Like, you can't play all of these guys up top. I do want to have a flag plant type of play on the slate. And Giannis is definitely going to be one of those guys that I want to build around. And again, he's going to be a popular play. He's going to be very, very highly owned. But if I just lock him in into all my lineups, depending on how many I run, I guarantee myself I'm well overweight the field. And that's the approach that I want to take here. The matchup is just very, very elite. And if the Bucks blow them out, it has to be Giannis that has a big game. These other guys aren't gonna. I mean, outside of Middleton could go off, but Bobby Portis hasn't been playing good. I don't trust these other scrubs like Malik Beasley, Andre Jackson, those types. For me, it's I don't want to be over on maybe some of the fringier values that might pop here. The Pat Cons, the Marjan, those type of plays. Even Andre Jackson, I'm not fading him. I know you guys are both very, very high on him. And again, I'm not fading him, but he's a very low usage type of play. And that's why I talked about some of the OKC backups. And again, if you're running a single entry or 3-max or a cash game type of lineup, that's not the approach that you want to take. But in tournaments, in large field tournaments, I do think it's a viable way to get different on this slate. The guys I'm not fading, though, are Giannis and Middleton. And then the Utah side, look, these guys are very much in play. It's use rules, put maybe a 2 to 3 max only. But Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, these guys are very much in play. Laurie's starting to wake up. Kay Fallick, maybe that's a play that you hit the nail on the head with Laurie last season. Like, he was optimal, never owned. I mean, he was insanely good. I'm starting to see that now. He's coming off a really nice game against Philly, 12 for 19, put up a 56 piece. I think he keeps it going tonight. I think Laurie is a really, really interesting tournament play tonight.
I agree with everything you said, other than giving Mr. Fallick credit. We're not doing that on this show, AP. Mangone, talk to me about the Bucks and Utah, specifically about maybe the value. Beauchamp, Jackson, and Connaughton, I think, are kind of the Beasley too. Beasley's my favorite of the three, but talk to me about the Milwaukee Bucks here.
Yeah, screw Fallick. I hope Amen Thompson turns into Max Struss. That's what I hope. I hope that's exactly what he does. He emerges from the Rockets, and Kevin will be bowing down to him in the postseason. So, but anyways, let's talk about this Milwaukee Bucks team, because the Milwaukee Bucks are clearly going to be a spot that we got to gravitate towards tonight. One thing to mention too with this team is, like, obviously they are missing someone like Damian Lillard, but they can play a little bit of positionless basketball. And if Utah decides to go big too, you could see extended minutes from like guys like Lopez and Portis. They could put even Giannis at the 3, right? They could do that. Not saying they will, but it's just worth mentioning. They could cut some of the guards' minutes out. I think Chris Middleton, I mentioned it probably like a week or two ago, how the minutes were starting to get stronger. And then, of course, yes, he had that Spurs game. That was weird, but we're not at a game where it's back-to-back and you're worried about him sitting out of nowhere. Like, I think it's a great spot for Chris Middleton. We know Utah's a perfect spot. So he's a nice, like, just forward play that feels pretty safe. I've been playing a lot of these forwards and just kind of like eating good forward plays and getting different with some of my other spots. I mean, I think it's a really good spot for Chris Middleton. So I like him here. Giannis, really great spend at 11.7K. I talk about Brook Lopez and his upside, and he's shown it a little bit, but lately he's been pretty hurtful. It's not a bad matchup against the Jazz, but I just don't know if I'm going to get there as much today. I think it's fine as like a last guy in. I don't mind his upside at 6K though. Bobby Portis at 5.4. His minutes have been struggling a ton. If those minutes were to tick up, I would be interested. So that's going to be a big decision you have to make, and that's going to be reflected in the projections and the adjustments that you make with your teams. I am likely not going to be as excited about Bobby Portis. One guy I think you should make a pretty good case for, he's in a revenge game, and if the shot's falling, they're going to use him a lot. I think Malik Beasley at 4.6 is not the craziest play. Now, he's got to get hot, right? The dude shoots 1 for 5 from 3. You're pretty dust with him. It's not going to feel great, but at 4.6 in a matchup against Utah, where we were talking before the show, DC, anyone gets right against Utah, I do think there's opportunity for someone like Malik Beasley. And then Jackson Jr. is the tough one. I want to know starters. I assume he's a starter. He could also be a weird spot kind of starter, and I could see them even playing Beasley at the 1 at times and playing a little bit bigger at spots. I think it's a little tougher than I'm thinking, but I think Andre Jackson is a little more questionable chalk than some of the other chalk pieces that we've mentioned. So that's my big thing I'm trying to decide.
A couple things I'll mention. Milwaukee doesn't need a traditional point guard on the floor in this game. Nobody, it's not like Lauri Markkanen is going to stop Giannis from dribbling up the court. Middleton can do it. It's just they don't have to play a traditional point guard at all if they don't want to. So that's interesting. And then the other thing, Milwaukee also doesn't really play very many minutes at all with Giannis, Portis, and Brook Lopez all on the court at the same time. So despite the Payne and Lillard missing for Milwaukee, I don't think you can really give much of a minutes bump to Portis and Brook Lopez really at all. So it's still really a good matchup for those guys, and I will have those guys sprinkled in. But I do think it's Giannis, Middleton, and then kind of the backcourt guys that you want to look at for the most part for Milwaukee.
I also think I should have mentioned this too. So typically I know Kevin, he used to be the chart man. You should go back to making charts great again. But when he allocates the minutes out, right, you're not allocating everything to guards. Like you mentioned, DC, I think you're going to allocate some minutes to Pat Connaughton, to Marjon Beauchamp, and
I
some
like both
of
those
these
guys
wing,
tonight.
these wing type defenders. I like them more than I like the Andre Jacksons on this slate. And specifically, I think it's a really good Pat Connaughton spot, right? So I mean, a team that's grinding it out, like AP said, the Utah Jazz, what do you want? You want other guys grinding it out against them, right? Pat Connaughton does a lot of that dirty work. I think it's Pat Connaughton over Beauchamp for me.
Yeah, Pat or Beauchamp. Put one in your lineup and then load up DraftKings again and put the other one in and just play two lineups. That's my suggestion with Beauchamp and Pat. If I had to choose, I would lean Beauchamp, but I think it's very, very close between those two. There's Kevin. Look at that compliment. He's. It sounds a little bit over the top sarcastic, but we'll take it. We'll take the compliments as they come from Kevin.
We're back arm in arm. We'll keep the momentum going to the next game with Kevin.
All right, last game on the slate: Phoenix and the Clippers. This game starts 2.5 hours after Utah and Milwaukee. I thought DK was doing away with these island games at the end of slates, but I guess when there's only 6 games, they're leaving it on. I hope this game doesn't go off, AP, because I'm probably not going to have a lot of Phoenix and Clippers, to be honest. Injury news, not a ton here. Durant, Gordon in for Phoenix. And then obviously Nasir Little, your guy as Buki is unfortunately out. AP, late night value at center for you, so you can't go there. I mean, listen, Leonard, Paul George, these guys are all fine plays in this game. I'm personally probably not going to end up there, given all the great plays earlier in the night. But for people playing showdown or people wanting to get different, what do you see here? AP, Phoenix, and the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a true opportunity cost type of situation. If you're playing a Devin Booker, a Kevin Durant, a Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Harden, like individually, these plays might be fine, but what are you sacrificing to to play them? You're playing them over a Jaylen Brown potentially, or the ability to go up to like a Giannis. And I don't see it on the slate. I really don't. And I have this game as a full fade. Now, again, if you're running 150, can you mix in some of the studs here, hoping to capture that individual ceiling type performance? Yeah, you can. And it's going to be a way to get you different, a little unique, because I don't see a lot of ownership on this game. But both sides fully healthy as far as their studs go. It just, I just have very, very little interest in a spot like this.
Yeah, same for me. Mangone, what about you? Phoenix and the Clippers.
Yeah, this seems like a really just tough game to get behind. Of course, you could always make a case that could one of these studs pop for a big game. Sure. I just prefer, like I said, getting different with some of my cheapies, like we've mentioned. It is the second night of a back-to-back for the Clippers. I don't see anything injury-wise. I doubt anything pops up. But yeah, I'm just struggling to get to any of these plays here, right? Teams are healthier. Pricing is up. Yeah, I think on DK, it's just a little bit tougher. Sure, if I fell on a Paul George in my teams as a contrarian stud, would I be okay with it? Yeah, but I just think I'm wasting my salary when I can play other plays. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on it. And I get it. A lot of people are going similar paths today. I think it's just trying to find the unique cheapies and maybe like a tough fade or two up top that, it's not easy to make that fade. But if you do make that fade, it'll separate you from the field and you're still playing the good plays.
Absolutely. That's the 6 games on this NBA slate. Likes are a little low, but we're feeling generous on this Monday. So we're going to give the plays of the day anyway. Hit the like if you haven't. It does help us out. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content. And of course, if you want to join the winner's circle over at Run for Your Sports, use promo code New Year to get 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. with that, let's get to the plays of the day. We will start with you, Mr. AP, your gentleman's play of the day for tonight.
I mean, these are the slates that are always really difficult because we could take the easy route out and give a Giannis or like a Jalen.
I don't have any one low owned in my lineup, so I'm going to have to pick a chalk guy because
and that's the problem because then I'm always like I feel obligated. I got to actually play the guy at a decent amount, even though in NBA things can change. And so like I mean I don't know. You could take the easy route out, and I mean one of us definitely is gonna have to, but I'm really, really torn. I should be banned from ever mentioning a Wizards player as a play of the day ever again. I was looking at a Daniel Gafford, a little bigs against the Thunder, but I'm gonna go with I got to go with Shea on the other side. I mean, it is eating some chalk. I just and again, I haven't tested out any builds. I don't even know if you can make it work because I talked about Giannis and I want to lock him in. I want to see if it's possible to make the Shea and Giannis lineups work because I think Shea just has a ton of upside in what should be a really, really easy matchup against the Wizards tonight. So, again, could change, but right now I'm going to say Shea is my play of the day.
All right, SGA for AP. Let's go to you, Mangone. Your Eiffel Tower play of the day.
Yeah, I will mention AP just to let you know, if you do play Shea, which I think he's going to get some ownership, if you play with Giannis, you're just not getting those Celtics, right? Those expensive Celtics. That's kind of
that's the problem.
Yeah, that's what it does. So that's kind of the build setup. So you are making a hard fade there, right? It is certain. So those are just ways to kind of get different with your teams. But for me, I'm going to go arm in arm with our guy, Kevin. We're going to go with Pat Connaughton as that cheap play of the day on the Milwaukee Bucks. That's going to be the value play that I think gets you. I think it gets 24 to 26 or 28 minutes tonight, and I think he gets the job done. So give me Pat Connaughton as my play of the day.
You know what? I got to do something. I'm going to go back to same game, but I'm going to play I'm never done this. We're mid show. We're changing it up. We got a little bit of time left. It's not a big deal. I'm going to go back to the Case and Wallace take.
There you go. That's what
the value route. The value route. Yeah. So that now I can make the Boston and the Giannis route work. So Case and Wallace. There we go.
I like that more. One thing I wanted to mention too is don't forget we target guards on you like against Damian Lillard. There's no Damian Lillard. The defense is still gonna be bad, right? Those Utah Jazz guys. I don't know. I forgot to mention this, but some of those Utah guards could really get there today. So maybe like AP has said before in the past, maybe set that rule where you get some Jazz in MME, but you're not playing 4 or 5, right? You at least get a little exposure because there are some ceilings there that you can get.
Absolutely. I will go to my play of the day. He'll be somewhat popular, but I think not as popular as he should be. My favorite Celtic tonight, Mr. Derek White. I'm seeing him around 25 to 30% owned. I think he might come in a little higher than that, but regardless, I do think he is the best play on the slate once you factor in price and the relatively low ownership, at least compared to some of these other plays on this chalkiest of slates. That will do it for us. Of course, for members, we do have the Up to Lock show coming up. I believe Mr. Fallick is on that show, so you can get his takes. Maybe I'll watch that show and troll him in the chat while he's giving his takes. And, of course, I'm sure they'll talk some college football tonight, all that good stuff. So should be a fun night of sports. We do appreciate you guys tuning in. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow for AP. For Mangone, I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.